I've already covered the new Dutch cruisers pretty extensively, at least the high tier ones on this channel. So if you're sick of seeing them, I apologize, but today I've got a new angle to present. I was always using the new commander, Johan Furstner, on these Dutch cruisers, and I had yet to try the original Dutch cruiser commander, Karel Doorman. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I'll put the build up on the screen momentarily. And of course, while discussing Furstner, I made a big deal out of his risk theory skill, which of course reduces the time it takes for the cruiser detectability to go down to normal by a whopping 30%. Combining that with Lemonnier and maybe even Ivan B. Delightful is, in my opinion, a little bit overpowered. I don't think you should be able to go that dark in cruisers that are this stealthy. But Dorman has his own somewhat overpowered skill that really can benefit these cruisers as well. I'll put him on the screen now, and you see the highlighted skill in the fourth row, whose name is completely unpronounceable to me. What it does is it makes each main battery shell, torpedo, or bomb hit by your cruiser, resulting in damage, increase subsequent damage to the same ship up to 50%. So every time you hit a ship with a shell or a bomb, it increases the damage you do to the ship by 0.75% for each hit until you reach a maximum of 50%. In order to see that working, I suppose it can be a little bit difficult, but basically, the more you focus a single target, the more damage you're going to do. And then Dorman offers some other features like Ingenious, which buffs the turret traverse and gives you the indicator for how many people are aiming at you. It's much easier to take the Look at Me Now skill in the second row, which improves the concealment. And if you take that skill, along with Makawa and Swirsky as inspirations, as I've done, well, provided that they're all at the same levels I have, you can achieve a concealment of 8.8 kilometers by sea on the Johan De Witt. And keep in mind, the Johan De Witt is a heavily armored cruiser with 40 millimeter plating on the upper belt and 30 on the deck. It's also got an icebreaker protecting the citadel bow on, even though the upper part of the bow is overmatchable. And then it's got large guns, 240 millimeters. It's a bit absurd to have concealment like this, especially when you can launch these airstrikes at unsuspecting Neptunes over islands. There's our first damage of the game, 24,000 against that Neptune with just 2 airstrikes. And we're going to meet him a little bit later on to damage him with our main battery guns. Of course, since we've hit him several times with 12 airstrikes, that's 12 times 0.75 for the damage increase that we're doing every time we hit, and that continues to stack until it reaches 50%. It just seems a little bit absurd, and it's probably more noticeable on these new Dutch cruisers, just because the airstrikes are easier to land than D7Ps. They have a bigger reticle, and they're harder to dodge for battleships or cruisers, not so much destroyers. They're going to have a little bit easier time, but D7P's reticle is so small that if you misaim it, it's quite easy to miss all of the bombs. Anyway, we're pushed out here to this, I don't know what this is, this western flank on, I think, the Atlantic map. One of the best maps in the game, no doubt. A map that I am always glad to see pull up on the screen. That is sarcasm, by the way. Bismarck goes down for the first kill of the blue team. We don't secure the kill, but we do secure one fist. And we are pushing out further to the flank because we don't know exactly where all the enemy destroyers are. We know there's a Richelieu over there, and we also know there's Neptune. But at this point, it seems like there's really nothing else. And we've got a destroyer joining us on the left-hand side of the ship here. What is that, the port side of the ship? He's going to go forward, and if there is anything to reveal, ideally, he'll reveal it for us. Plus, the Lucian, who was AFK for a good deal of the beginning of this battle, has woken up, and he's going to be pushing out too. With both of these guys in front of us, I feel a little bit more confident about going in toward the enemy. Richelieu is, of course, playing the French battleship strategy commonly seen by the regular Richelieu AL Richelieu and Jean Bar. The strategy is sit still, bow tank, reverse, and sometimes go forward a little bit. Not a fantastic idea if you're going to be focused down by these airstrikes, and here we're going to be torturing the poor Azerlane Richelieu just a little bit. Unfortunately, that second airstrike lands only one bomb, but we're up to 66,000 damage and counting now, with the perma-fires set on Azerlane Richelieu. And we know that Neptune is still behind that island, currently unspotted, but Lucian is approaching the gap between the two rocks in front of us, so he should catch sight of Azerlane, or regular Neptune rather, provided that that guy is not in a smoke screen, and he's not. We do catch the torpedoes because we deploy the sonar, and we're going to just inch forward here. We need to be careful and keep this island between ourselves and Richelieu, even though Johan De Witt is pretty well armored, and I'm sure we could reasonably defend ourselves against Richelieu. We don't want to just push out straight in and take crossfires between Richelieu and Neptune. We want to focus one at a time. So it's crucial we maintain this position with this island blocking Richelieu from us, and that way we have the Neptune all to ourselves. These 240mm guns will overmatch, I believe, the bow and stern plating of Neptune. So there's not going to be much he can do here. He can certainly shoot us with his armor piercing, but I doubt he's going to be getting any citadels when we're slightly angled like this. Speaking of which, there's a citadel right through his stern. And I don't think we would be doing as much damage if it were not for Karel Doorman's skill, his unique skill that increases the damage. Seems a little bit bad if you're in the Neptune's shoes. Rear turret of justice finishes him off. We don't even need to look at that. We knew he was going down, and there's our first kill of the game. We're going to be getting our second kill of the game here, too. We've hit that Richelieu so much with these airstrikes that we probably maxed out the damage. 7 hits, he goes down for our second kill of the game. Not quite quickly enough for us to obtain the double strike medal. And just like that, this flank is clear from all enemy opposition. There are 2 destroyers left, but they're on the other side of the map, along with the remaining cruiser and battleship. Not exactly sure where the CV is, but judging by his last spotted position, he's probably retreated to the map border and is most likely fairly close to his teammates. But the cap is clear, aside from the CV threat, so we're going to enter it. If the CV comes at us with the planes, we do have the DFAA, and we've shot down only 2 planes thus far, but the Johan De Witt, from what I've been able to see, is pretty capable of taking down planes, so I'm not all that worried about that. And with only 1 battleship and cruiser left, the torpedoes from the destroyers may very well be the biggest concern. We'll be able to angle ourselves against the battleship, provided he's even going to still be floating. I think he has been taken down to pretty low HP at this point, but there is a fairly healthy Cleveland out there, and we've got 113,000 damage done, so I would like to do more before this battle ends. Unfortunately, it's turning into a little bit of a blowout, and normally I like to avoid putting blowouts on YouTube, but we've got 2 kills. And there's 3 more to obtain for a kraken. So you got to put a kraken on YouTube, you know, even if it is a blowout. Anyway, we've got our friendly DD, which I think is maybe the Lucian that was initially AFK, inside of the cap. But the cap is contested, so one of the enemy DDs is inside of it. But he must be on the far edge because you can see as we enter that we're not spotted. 8.8 km concealment. So he's got to be right there somewhere. I'm going to take a shot at the Cleveland with the AP. Another nice thing about Karel Doorman is that his base trait improves accuracy from the main battery guns versus cruisers and destroyers. I can't really tell that it's doing that, but in theory that's a useful thing because these guns are, well, the dispersion leaves a little bit to be desired. Cleveland is still floating. We're going to continue shooting at him a little bit, but we're going to launch an airstrike at the Saipan, who has been spotted. There's the high caliber medal against the Cleveland, and at this point he's not really giving us a favorable angle, and he's run into the map border. So, the CV presenting broadside, free Citadel City, and we can continue to stack the damage buffs as we continue to hit him. Oyster Goatland spotted in front of us, but we've already shot at the Saipan. Do we take him out? No. Once again, dispersion and RNG letting us down ever so slightly. Rear turret of justice, though. You see, it always dispenses justice. There's a Citadel on the CV, and that shot should take him out for our third kill. Meanwhile, Cleveland on the map border, fairly stationary, ought to be easy to hit with these airstrikes, but just to be safe, we'll launch a salvo of HE his way. The airstrikes do destroy him. That's our fourth kill. And now, there are only 2 enemy destroyers left, one of which is the Oyster Goatland, which was spotted quite close to us. Sonar's running. If he launches the torpedoes, we should be able to acquire them visually and then avoid them. And hopefully we'll be able to push into him and spot him and secure our kraken. Spoiler alert, we will, but we have to be careful about it. At this point, the only 2 ships left alive on the enemy team are the 2 destroyers, one of which is Oyster Goatland right here. The other one is approaching our cap to go after our friendly CV. Of course, as soon as we spot Oyster Goatland, all the guns start opening up. We launch an airstrike. I don't think it actually hits. So we wait, and then we secure the kill at the last moment so that we guarantee the Kraken unleashed. Perhaps a little bit of dirty tactics on our part, but I feel like after having sunk 4 enemy ships on this push from the western flank to the enemy base, I feel like the Kraken is fairly deserved. 154,000 damage, 4 citadels, 9 fires, and 36 bomb hits. A lot of damage in the Johan De Witt, which I do think is overpowered. Just a little bit, anyway. And it doesn't seem to matter which commander you use. You can certainly use Dorman, as I have in this battle, and I've tested him out pretty extensively last night. He works very well on the Johan De Witt and the Howden Lu, and I'm sure the rest of the line. So you can really go either way. If you missed Furstner from the Commander event, you don't get to exploit the crazy concealment parameters that Risk Theory gives you. But if you've got Dorman, which you will have Dorman if you've completed the D7P campaign, then you can exploit the damage stacking skill with the unpronounceable name in the 4th row. And really, you can't go wrong with either one. Between all the games I've played on Johan De Witt, with Dorman, and with Furstner, I've got an 85% win rate with an average damage of 144,000 and 2.4 ships destroyed, along with an average XP of 2,600. I would say, at the very least, I'm a decent player at this game, but I don't think I'm that good. That'll be the ship that is allowing me to achieve those kind of numbers. So yeah, go ahead, try Dorman out on these new Dutch cruisers if you have them. And if you don't have them, well, the patch is almost over. Next week on the update, they should be freely researchable for everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.